Well, as the world turns its attention to the Winter Olympics in Italy, one Arizona man knows exactly what it's like to fly down an icy track at highway speeds. Robert Rock is an Olympian who helped build the sport of luge in the United States. And 12 News journalist Kyle Simchuk got a chance to sit down with him. Here's a look at that conversation.
First name is Robert, last name is Rock. Olympian, never former, never past. Always Olympian. Well, I grew up in Missoula, Montana, and went to high school and college there. And in 1964, the luge was introduced to the Olympics for the first time. And the U.S. didn't have a team, so they did bring some personnel in from Germany to Grenoble, France, where the Olympics were, and had them compete. And fortunately, two of the soldiers got seriously injured because it is a dangerous sport, and if you can't just jump on the sled and go, it's a lot more to it. So from '64, the United States Olympic Committee contacted the Amateur Athletic Union, the AAU, and the president at that time was Dave Ravines, and they asked him to put together a development team in the U.S. And he went to the state economic department, and they found a group that would build a track and sponsor the races at Little Hot Springs, Montana. And that was the first track in the United States as well as the Western Hemisphere. So I was a sophomore in high school and helped build the track. They also found a Missoula company to build sleds, luge sleds for us. And so that's when I started. And I just, being from Montana in wintertime, riding sleds, going down hills on sleds was just another fun activity, and I just absolutely loved the luge. Well, it was very interesting because you're not quite sure how to steer the sled because we had nobody to train us. There was no coaches. So it was just kind of catch as catch can. So you didn't go all the way up the track. You started down below and slowly moved up the track. And of course, one of the things is the sleds were about 45 pounds. You had to carry your sled back up the hill. But I still loved the sport and just kept sliding and doing the best I could. Well, it is yeah, you do get a little rush that lasts a while because it picks up speed pretty quickly when you're going down an ice course.
So you were hooked.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I loved to race, and so I kept at it. And we didn't have any races per se. We had some inter team races. The University of Montana had a team, and the ROTC, Air Force ROTC, had a team, and then there was other people from other parts of the country that came in to race and to train on the track because it's the only place they had. And at the end of that season, we moved on. Next year, the following year, in 1966, we built the track again, and same design. And I started training, but that year we had the North American Championships. So people from Canada came in. I'm just a 17-year-old kid. I had no idea all these people were following this sport. And so I did pretty well. I was classified in the junior division. And I actually took overall on the single sled, overall I took 5th place. But because the other guys were in the senior division, I was in the junior division. And took the national North American Championship in '66. I got the gold. Yeah, I got the gold medal. There's probably 80 competitors, approximately, and I will just tell you, a lot of people didn't have a lot of experience at it. Some of it was people that just showed up and thought they could ride the sled down. They didn't do very well. It didn't last very long. And then I partnered up with a guy called John Fragnito, who was a high school buddy, and we rode the double sled, and we took 2nd place. But he was older, so we got in the senior division on that one. So in 1967, the track washed out. There was not enough not enough snow and it was too warm. So what they did is they went back to 1966 and looked at the track times, and they selected a team to go to the 1968 games in Grenoble, France. And I was an alternate to that team. Again, I was still in high school, so it was okay. And so they developed a team, and they went on to 1968 to the Olympics in Grenoble. So in Berchtesgaden, Germany, this is the qualifying race for the United States Olympic team for the '72 Olympics. That's me on a single sled entering into the Uli Duli Dorf of the refrigerated track in Berchtesgaden. And we're going to go down the track as go through the curves. And this is from the men's starts, which is about 1,200 meters. And they just went by the women's start. And you're already doing about 45 to 50 right there. And we're going to hit the touch curve. And now we're coming into the S turns. And we're doing about 60, 65. And there's 4 S turns. And as you can see, we pull 2 to 5 Gs going through these corners. The corners actually slow you down because it's pushing the sled into the ice. And this is the end of the long straightaway. It's a little foggy that day. You can see somebody bouncing around there. They came out of the 4th S. This is a world champion German sledder who also crashed at the 4th S. And this is a double sled. They're very difficult to drive. And we see there that coming into there, you can see the sled has lost its rider, and you slide forever.
Does that hurt when you're off the sled just on the ice?
You can. So there's the finish curve. You can see how high up he went. And the runs run about 50 seconds, and we're timed down to the thousandth of a second. So it's just a matter of trying to control the sled and getting the best lines possible. There's a guy that came out of the curve late. Another rider crashed above, lost his sled, no time. And that gentleman was upside down on the finish curve and fractured his neck and went to the hospital. So
it's a dangerous sport.
It is a dangerous sport. So the luge was introduced into the Olympic Games in 1964.
Oh, wow. So you were just 8 years later. It was a new sport.
Yeah, I was at the beginning of the sport in the United States, in Montana.
Missoula, right?
In Missoula.
Is that where you grew up?
Yep.
Yeah.
Beautiful country there. Berchtesgaden was, like I said, the first refrigerated track. So a lot of teams would come there, and we trained there several times.
And the difference between refrigerated
and natural. Natural is their, a lot of the tracks back then that they had crews that would build the track out of ice and snow, and they'd have forms behind it, and they'd just pack it in and freeze it. So the '68 games were over. In 1968, I decided, I was in the University of Montana, but if I was going to go racing, I would lose my deferment and be drafted into the military. So I went and joined the military. Then then the USA Luge, right after I got my commission, called and said, the team is forming up in Hammarstrand, Sweden, and we'd like you to come out. And I should say, they don't really have a team yet. They got a bunch of people that are going up there and race, because every day's a race day for luge against everybody else, and wanted me to come up. Only thing is, I'm in the military, and my duty station when I got commissioned was Fort Hood, Texas. And I had to pay my own way, and I had to go to D.C. to get a passport because I didn't have one. Well, I got a Department of Defense passport, and traveled around with that throughout Europe. So I got to Hammarstrand. Luckily, somebody had bought a sled from the factory in Italy, and went down once, and that was it for them. And so I was able to buy their sled. I don't know if they were screaming all the way down or not, but it was something they did. They just didn't want to do it. It can be scary if you're not used to it. First of all, you have a start time that you're going to start. So you're at the top of the track getting ready. The sled is prepped. It's waxed. You got your runners set up. The first thing that happens is you go over by the start ramp and they measure the temperature of your runners. And the runners have to be within a certain degree of the outside temperature so that you're not heating the runners. Because the East Germans were caught heating the runners at the World Championships. And that's a no-no. So if you got to be within range. But before that, you're really visualizing your run. You've been down the track, you know where you want to be, and you go over and over and over with it, preparing yourself and getting ready to go. You bring the track up there, the starter sets it on the start ramp for you. You get to take your seat and you're mentally ready to go. You got to be in the moment, and you're thinking about you're going to go as fast as you absolutely can. And then you launch yourself off the platform and paddle down the chute and pick up speed very quickly, getting ready for that first turn. And once it starts, you're just on automatic. The thing to do is you have to remember to breathe, and the pressures you're feeling and all that, and you don't want to oversteer the sled. It's very maneuverable. And start hitting the marks in the track that you want to be, and guide it through for about 55 seconds, and hit the end. And by the time you hit the end, you're so pumped with adrenaline you could run back up the hill. And you hopefully don't skid. You get to, every run is different. You never can hit the same lane twice. So the runner is between the ankle and the calf, and they're like this. Your feet are like this. You're trying to point them, be aerodynamic, but it's between that, and so you just press on that runner. So if I'm going to go to the left, I press on the right runner, and the sled goes slightly like this.
And what part of your body is pressing?
Your leg is pressing against it, not your foot. Your foot's sticking out in the front.
With your legs.
But it's just right between the ankle bone and the calf. You're just right there, pressing.
And minor adjustments. You don't want to...
You want to be as still as possible on the sled. Now remember, you're looking down the track, so you can see the walls, you can see the curves coming up, and as it's coming up on you, you want to be in a certain part of the track to start into the curves, because sometimes you have to turn up into the curves. And so you got to be a little careful, because that's where you can, again, too much pressure on the runners will cause the sled to skid. And you hit that mark, and up you go onto the wall, and a couple seconds later you're out shooting out the exit, and you want to hold that line through the curve. So if you're going a left-hand turn, if you watch the racing, you'll see the sledder will be pressing down on that upper runner to hold the line. So if you want to take the line that's the natural line through the curve too low, and the centrifugal force will throw you up the curve, and then you come back down the curve, and that's not good because you lose a lot of time. Or you don't want to be too high. If you're too high, again, you're losing time. There's an optimum time through that curve. And in the meantime, you've hit 2 to 5 Gs, somewhere in there, depending on the curve.
What does that feel like on your body?
It happens so quick you don't even notice it. I don't know. So you just know that you're pushed into the sled. Because you've raced on this track, you've been up and down it a few times. It's just a natural reaction to where the sled's going to be. And people crash. I crashed.
Tell me about your worst crash.
Well, it was in Birch's Garden. I shouldn't say that. My worst crash was up in Hammerstrand. We were trying to break the track record. And that was a natural track. And so the workers went out and prepped the track. So I got down towards the bottom at the highest speeds, probably 75 miles an hour, and I came out of the last curve just before the end, before the finish curve, and I came out late, and it slammed me into the wall on the right side, bounced me off the sled, and I was sitting up in the track trying to slow myself down, but the track had little nubs in them, and I lost my feeling in my legs and butt from the riding on that bumpy track, and finally stopped. And then I had to have the workers happened to be right there that worked on the track. They came over and picked me out of the track and put me up on the side because I couldn't move them. So that was probably my worst one. So I just walked out, and then I got all my equipment put together. And I made sure that like I did in Montana, I made sure I made more runs than anybody else on that track, because again, you had to carry your sled back up the top of the track. But most of the year, and then the other European teams started showing up, because this track was way north, guaranteed to have ice, and a track, because though getting farther down into Europe, they weren't able to build their tracks yet. And about the same time, the West Germans in Berchtesgaden, Germany, built a refrigerated track. That was the first refrigerated track. There's now 8 of them across the world, and 2 of them are in the U.S., Park City and Lake Placid, New York. Well, first of all, they were a lot smoother than the natural ice tracks. And secondly, they just needed to have cold enough temperatures to freeze the water they would spray on the track. And so it didn't have to get cold. And because the refrigeration was constant, they didn't have the thawing problems when you had a little warm spell. So it made a big difference. I wanted to get to Germany, and so I contacted again the sports department at the Pentagon, and they had a general contact me to see what my options were. Yes, a general. Well, whatever. And of course, I don't know how it's going to work. Well, anyway, he went through the various options that I had, and one of them was to go voluntary indefinite, which means I would be in the Army as a career till they didn't need me anymore. So it was up to them. I didn't have what's called ETS. But it was kind of a no-brainer for me, because I wanted to race and be ready for the 72 games in Japan. And he told me I go voluntary indefinite, so I got orders within a couple weeks to report to Germany. And so Lan and I packed up out of Texas and in the fall, and I went to Germany and reported in for duty there, and then immediately went to training. Lana didn't come over with me, and started racing, going back to Hammarstrand, Sweden, train up there, and then back down to Berchtesgaden, because we're trying to develop more racers. And of course, you don't start at the top of the track, you start further down the track, and sometimes people would take one run and that was enough. They didn't need any more, and we had some other people that kept racing. So in 70, that's the fall of 71, 72 rolls around. We're all prepping for the Olympics in Japan. The U.S. team boarded in on Pan America out of Denver to Anchorage to Tokyo. And the 72 games were on the northern island of Japan, Hokkaido, in Sapporo. Beautiful snow, beautiful country, beautiful people. We were there a month. But the East Germans took all the medals. And the thing about the East Germans was there was 12 athletes on the team and 17 technical advisors. And some of those were political handlers, because they were worried about the East Germans potentially defecting. That's the type, and then they always traveled with them. But the East Germans were incentivized, because that's the only time they ever get a chance to leave East Germany. And then the West Germans, of course, were the next best at that time. And now it's a unified team, so it worked out just fine. And so the U.S. team, we kind of hit in the middle again, between 20 and 30.
Out of how many would you say?
There was a total of 85, I think.
85.
Yeah, there's a team, individuals. There's a limited number. First of all, you have to qualify, number 2, and not all the countries had a full team. So, And
It's better than the first year.
better, we all finished. Everybody did a great job. I was number one. I was in 26th place at the end of the third run. And so on the fourth run, I really wanted to improve again, get a faster time and try to move up. So I changed a few things on my sled. And on that fourth run, I was faster and a lot faster. And I came out of the curve up on the upper part of the track and I was late and it threw me into the other wall and I bounced off the sled. Then I got back on again and obviously my time was not what I wanted it to be. But you know, if you don't go for it, you only get one shot at it. You might as well take the risk.
What's your top speed, you know?
75 at that time.
75.
Yeah.
So that's like going down to 10.
Yeah, going down to 10.
The speed limit.
Yeah, you're going to speed limit. Now they're the newer, a lot more technologies come into play on these sleds, and the tracks are, some of the tracks are a lot faster. And as I think about the 2010 Winter Games in Vancouver, that's really right now the fastest track. And the best German racer, Locke, hit 93 miles an hour on that track.
Wow.
That's unheard of. And I'm going to talk about Cortina for a second.
Yeah.
They built a brand new sledding facility in Cortina, and for luge, bobsled, and skeleton. But instead of having the normal 14 curves at all the other tracks, this track's got 16 curves in it and is a lot longer. So it's going to be very exciting to watch those sledding sports because it's going to be a lot more difficult. And it's a new track, so nobody's had a lot of time on it. The 72 Olympic Games was the first Olympics that NBC covered. I think the hard part, and I think all athletes face the same thing, you're thrown off your normal racing schedule because you got all these delays, flying there, lots of hoopla, getting into the Olympic Village, figuring out where everything is, and then there's just a lot less track time. So, and you get a translator, a driver, and all those kind of things that come with it. And of course, you got all your new clothes you got to wear for the opening ceremony. Best part of the whole thing.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Why was that?
Well, it's the Parade of Nations. So we're in an outdoor arena. It's cold. We have Ralph Lauren clothing on that we got through. I think he went through Sears to get it, and we're all decked out in this new stuff that we hadn't worn before. And so you march, and the manager came to us before we left the Olympic Village and said, okay, they don't want you taking any photographs, and Kodak had given us little cameras, any photographs of flash photography when you're out on the field. And so, you know, we thought, oh, what deal? What's the deal? And so we march out, and the viewings, you march past the viewing stands where the dignitaries all are, all the political people and all the people from Japan that are in the Olympics. And of course there's the flag bearer. So we elected the flag bearer on the flight over from the US to Japan. And one of the things that's different for the US with that, and they probably will announce it on TV, is that the U.S. is the only team that does not dip their flag when they go by the viewing stand. All the other teams have to keep their flag up, or dip their flags. The U.S. does not. And that's because of the World War II in 1936 at the Olympic Games in Germany. So that's one thing you can watch for to see if they're not supposed to dip it. Anyway, we march out there, and I think the Polish are in front of us, the Russians are behind us. And so we swing out and we pull up, and all the teams are on the field. And then the stadium goes dark, and at the very end of the stadium, you see this beautiful Japanese figure skater carrying the torch skate past all the athletes and the viewing stand, When she got to the front of us, right there, on both sides of us, the Poles and Russians, they all brought out their video cameras and were taking pictures. So that's the coat that was worn by the Canadian national team.
Really?
So I had the blue leather coat from Ralph Lauren, and my Canadian buddy loved that coat. So we traded. That's made by the indigenous people in Canada. I think, well, today's obviously different because there's a lot of money involved these days, but athletes still need support, you know, not necessarily financial, but, you know, kind words, and they're there to compete and do the best they can, and it's not everybody's time to win, but we're going to enjoy watching it because that country's going to put on a great show. That's a great part of the country, Cortina. Yeah, so Coca-Cola sponsored the torch relay, 10,000 runners across the country. So they were going to carry the Olympic flame in that torch for a quarter mile to a little bit more, depending on the location. So I submitted my application and I was selected to carry the torch, and I carried it downtown Phoenix in front of what used to be the Dial building. I don't know what it is today, but down that street for half a mile, and it was a great experience. And the torch is kind of the symbol of the Olympics with the flame, and so I had the Olympic flame for about that period of time, which was unbelievable to me. The route to run around the whole country, you know, wound up and down and around, and so there's a whole slew of people that participated.
Yeah, but the look on your face, you look pretty happy there.
I'm pretty happy, yeah.